Okay, welcome to the video that I have been so excited to film, mine and Hudson's birth story. I'm not really sure how long this is going to take. I definitely won't rush it because it's so precious to me and I love it. So I would probably get like a snack if I were you, something to drink, and make sure you have some time on your hands so that you can listen if you want to. I guess I'll begin by just kind of giving a super quick rundown of my pregnancy, how it all went. I had a really easy pregnancy. No complications. I didn't gain very much weight. I mean, I gained a healthy amount. I didn't gain very much weight though. He grew perfectly. Like, we were just so lucky and blessed that it went so smoothly. And yeah, so no complications at all. Let's see. I guess I'll just dive into how I went into labor, maybe like a day or two before leading up to that. Throughout my whole pregnancy, pretty much everyone would say to me, like, you're gonna go early, you'll have him early, like 10 days early. People would just make their guesses and whatever. And I really tried hard not to like stick to that and like listen to what people said, because I didn't want to, you know, have 38 weeks, 39 weeks come and him not be born and then be disappointed with it. I had my 40-week appointment. I made it to 40 weeks. And at my 40-week appointment, my midwife asked me if she could, she asked me if I wanted to have my membrane stripped. And I was already dilated to a 2.5 actually, and I was 70% effaced. And if you don't know what any of that means, you can DM me or Google it. But I was 2.5 centimeters dilated and 70% effaced. And I had always heard that like getting your membrane stripped like hurt so bad and it was so uncomfortable. So when my 38-week appointment came around and they asked if I wanted to have that done, I just said no, because sometimes it works and puts people in labor and sometimes it does absolutely nothing. And I just figured my body will do what it wants to do when it's ready to do it. So I just figured like there's no point, and I told her no at my 38-week appointment. My 40-week appointment came around and I just kind of, you know, I wasn't upset that I made it to 40 weeks, but I just thought like, why not? You know, whatever, let's just try it. I'm at 40 weeks. He's fully developed inside of me. Pregnancy is 40 weeks long, so I was like, okay, let's do it. So she did it and I didn't even flinch. Like, it did not hurt whatsoever. And my aunt and my sister went with me to that appointment, and my aunt was like so confused how it didn't hurt, because her and all my other aunts and my mom and everyone had just said like it's the most like uncomfortable feeling ever, because they reach inside of you and like swipe you and kind of just like irritate things. It didn't hurt at all. And my aunt asked my midwife, she was like, how the heck did it not hurt, or whatever? Or maybe it was my mom that asked her later. I can't remember who asked, but my midwife basically said like, if it hurts something, you're not doing it right. Which, I mean, I don't know because I haven't had any other babies, but it didn't hurt at all. I didn't flinch. I was like ready to like wiggle my toes and think about something else while she was doing it. And she said, okay, a little bit of cramping here. As she was doing it, she's like, okay, a little bit more cramping. And it didn't feel like anything. And after I had that done, I mean, it was like really minimal cramping that I had, which is super normal. Like, my mucus plug was coming out a little bit, but I was informed by my midwife that your mucus plug reproduces itself. So even if you lose some of it, it's gonna reproduce itself and come back. It's okay. So I was losing a little bit of that. I had a little bit of cramping, and it's all super normal for that to happen after you have that done, but nothing ever came of it. So my 40-week appointment came and went. I went to 40 weeks in 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and on the 4th day, it was a Sunday, and we were at my mom's house, and it was in the evening. And actually, that whole day I had been having Braxton Hicks contractions, and let me just say I had had Braxton Hicks contractions since I was like 15 weeks pregnant, so it was really nothing new. I just realized that day that they were very constant, and I wouldn't say regular, but they were happening a lot that day. So I noticed that kind of throughout the day, and then we went to my mom's house in the evening, and I kind of felt like I wasn't really feeling the baby move like normal, and he was a mover inside, like super, super, super active. And so that day I felt like his movements kind of decreased just a little bit, which worried me because if you feel like it's not regular anymore, you need to go in and be checked and make sure everything's okay. So I had also noticed that, and I had told my mom that. And then we were just hanging out. We played like a board game and had ice cream at my mom's. I went to the bathroom and there was blood in my underwear, and it wasn't a lot. It was like kind of just like spotting. I don't know how to describe what it looked like. It was bright red, and I hadn't had any spotting in early pregnancy, like none at all throughout the whole pregnancy, so it kind of freaked me out because it had never happened. I like yelled for my mom to come to the bathroom and look at it, and she was like, you know, maybe just like go in and have them check because you're better safe than sorry. So I kind of felt panicky, and I called labor and delivery, and they just told me like, yeah, come on in, we can check you out and see what's going on. So Adam and I left my mom's house and we went to our apartment to get our hospital bags and stuff just in case, you know, it was time and it was happening. I think we got to the hospital at about, let me see, I think I wrote it down. I don't think I actually wrote it down. We got there at about 9 p.m. And I went straight back to triage. A minute for them to check me in. They had me go pee in a cup, and then I finally got a room in triage area. And so they hooked me up to like a monitor to measure like his heart rate, and then to check and see if I was having contractions. I wasn't having like real contractions. I was having Braxton Hicks, which they saw on the thing, and his heart rate was totally fine. And then my midwife Stephanie came in. She just happened to be working that night, which was like such a coincidence. I was like so shocked to hear that she was working, and I was so happy. And she came in and checked me, and I was still at a 2.5 and 70% effaced, so nothing had changed really. And then she asked if I wanted to have my membrane stripped again, and I said sure, because A, it didn't hurt me last time, and B, I just thought once again, like I'm already 4 days overdue, so why not? So she did it, and then she told Adam and I, go to a movie, like, you know, just hang out, like this might be the start of something, so like maybe you guys could have a really cool story or something like that. But we just went home. We got home at about, let's see, I think I wrote that down too. Yeah, we got home at about 10:45, 11 p.m. We got into bed and went to sleep at about 11:15, 11:30. And I placed these like puppy pads under my sheet on top of my mattress just in case my water broke, or, you know, maybe like in case I did start bleeding or something. And when I did it, I thought to myself, like, this is so silly, like I'm not gonna end up using these, like, you know, it's just funny. So we went to sleep. Then I woke up around 12:40 a.m. So it was now the 25th, and I was now 40 weeks and 5 days. And I felt like I had to use the bathroom. And I'm just gonna read it off here really quick so that I don't really miss anything. I felt like I had to use the bathroom. I sat down on the toilet and looked at my underwear, and there was a lot of bloody looking fluid. And it was very different from what I had noticed in my underwear when I was at my mom's that night before we had gone to the hospital and then went to bed. This was definitely like fluid, like it almost looked like clear fluid mixed with blood. So I kind of freaked out, and I took a picture of it and sent it to my mom, and I said, does this look normal? And my mom said, no, I don't think so, like you should call labor and delivery again and just kind of ask what it, you know, whatever, and maybe they'll tell you to go in. And when she told me that I should call labor and delivery again, I kind of was just like, ugh, like I don't want to feel dumb if like we get there and then we're sent home and it's just like this whole stupid thing, because this could just be something totally normal that comes with having your membrane stripped. So I didn't call them. Then once I got off the toilet and like, you know, tried to think about what was going on, I thought I felt like cramps. And that turned into what were contractions. I walked out into the kitchen to get a drink of water and just kind of like see if it lingered or what, you know, what was going on. And I just remember like having this cramp come. It started out like period cramps, and I had really, really, really bad period cramps before I got pregnant. So that's just kind of what it felt like. And it would last for about 30, 40 seconds, and then it would go away. And I just remember when it was happening, I was just kind of like rocking back and forth. in the kitchen, and like I just started to like breathe through it, because if it was the start of something, I wanted to be able to like find my center during it so that I could, you know, work through it. Another one came. So I called my mom and I told her what was happening, and she asked me what it felt like and where I was feeling them, and I was feeling them like in my underbelly. I wasn't feeling it in my back, I wasn't feeling it on my whole stomach, but I was definitely feeling it like underneath my belly, like in between my pelvic bones, like right in that area. Then my mom told me that I should start timing them, because if they were contractions, they would, you know, most likely be regular and they would intensify. So I started timing them, and at this point it was about 1:15 in the morning, and I remember telling my mom on the phone, like, I think I'm gonna go wake up Adam and have him like time them with me. So I went and woke him up, and we came into the living room, and they were indeed contractions, and they were intensifying pretty quickly. Like it wasn't like a slow progression, it was like they were getting more and more intense very quickly, and they were 5 minutes apart, lasting for 1 minute, and it was almost an hour that it had been happening. And I just remember being out in the living room, kneeling on this ottoman thing, breathing through them, and poor Adam, he was like half asleep, and he was just, I think he was kind of like, what's going on? Like he knew what was going on, but like I don't know if he felt like it was like the real thing or not. So I told him that they were intensifying, and I told him like how close they were together, because I was tracking them on an app, and I told him you need to go shower and take care of whatever you need to take care of, because I think we need to go soon. So I went to the bathroom, and more blood came out, and they were 2 tiny little blood clots, and so that kind of freaked me out too. Well, Adam got in the shower, and after he got out of the shower, I've never seen him hop and skip and jump around the apartment like as fast as he was going, trying to like gather everything, because we had taken our hospital bags the first time we went that night, and we brought them back to the apartment because, you know, I wasn't in labor then, but we didn't unpack anything. So we kind of just like added everything that we needed to the bags, and, you know, got our stuff together. We left the apartment and we went to labor and delivery. And when we got checked into triage, Stephanie came back in. She was still working. She was working the night shift. And she checked my cervix, and I was now dilated to a 4. And she said I was 80 to 100% effaced. I can't remember if it was 80 or if it was 100 or whatever, but I was somewhere in there. And she said that the first time that we came in, she said that she had a feeling that she'd be seeing us again. So she told us that when we came in the second time. In my little triage room, I was breathing through the contractions because they were painful, and it was like period cramps, but like on steroids. Like, it's really true. Like, you can't really describe what they're like other than just saying period cramps. So we finally got into an actual hospital room at about like 3 in the morning, 3:10. And my contractions were really strong, but I just like kept breathing through them. There were 2 nurses in the room when we got in there, kind of setting everything up, getting my information in the computer and whatnot. And they kept telling me that I was doing really well with the contractions because I was hooked up to a monitor and they could see how strong they were, and that I was doing a good job just breathing through them, which was nice to hear because it kind of like helped me not feel like a wimp. And it felt good to know that I was handling them as well as I could, and it was just kind of nice to hear. About 20 minutes after we got into the room, I asked for the epidural. I told them, like, I want it now. Like, it needs to be here as soon as it can be. And so they let the anesthesiologist know, and they had to hook me up to an IV first before I could get the epidural. And believe it or not, the IV hurt the worst. Out of every single thing that labor and delivery comes with, the IV hurt the worst. And I'm not making that up. I'm like dead serious. So they tried to put my IV in my, like a little below my wrist. And they were saying something about my veins bursting or something. Like, isn't that just the most awful thing that you could hear? Like, your veins are bursting. Like, great, don't tell me that. So they tried on this arm, then they tried on this arm, and then the nurse was like, well, maybe we should try a smaller needle. And in my head I was thinking, why didn't you just start with a smaller needle to begin with? So then they went back to my left hand and did it in my actual, like, top of my hand, not my arm. And it was finally in, and then it was time to get my epidural a little bit later. The moment that the anesthesiologist came in, panic set in, because, you know, you hear about the epidural being so painful and the needle being so huge, and you hear about like all these different horror stories about how people, you know, are numb after they give birth for so long, or just like all these side effects or whatever. And you hear about, like, you know, when they're doing it, you have contractions or there's zings down your legs or whatever. And I was so nervous. I was more nervous to have the epidural than I was to push my baby out. And I was just hoping and praying that the epidural would work, because for some people it doesn't. And so the anesthesiologist kind of told me like how I needed to hunch over. He was kind of walking me through like the steps of how it was all going to happen. And he was cleaning my back first for 3 minutes and yada yada. And Adam was sitting in front of me, and I just remember looking into his eyes and saying, I'm so nervous, and I had like a frantic like quiver in my voice. And he just looked at me and he said, it's gonna be okay, you're doing great, like don't worry, you're gonna be fine, like you got this. And like that honestly like calmed me down so much. Adam was great when I was getting my epidural. And so it began, and I remember asking the guy who did it before he started, I said, can you please try to do it in between contractions? And it was just kind of like, duh, that's the whole goal, you know? He started doing it, and first it was just like a little numbing shot, which, you know, it just felt like a shot that you get in your arm, except in your spine. And then he did the epidural, and honestly, what it felt like was just like if you push really hard like on your knuckle. I don't know how to describe it any other way, but it did not hurt whatsoever. And I was so panicked because, you know, you don't know what to expect. Your first time doing this all, your first time doing anything, you don't know what to expect, but it literally did not hurt whatsoever. And I was so happy because we were able to do it in between contractions, and it was just perfect. It went so smoothly. So then I had the epidural, and I was starting to become numb, and it was sometime between 4 and 5 a.m. My family showed up. Like, I'm talking all of my aunts, some of my cousins, my grandparents, my siblings, like they all showed up. And Adam's family, his sisters, his mom and dad, they just showed up, and they came into the room to say hi. And I started crying because I just couldn't believe that, like, you know, people would come as early as it was in the morning, especially because, you know, every story is so different. You never know how long someone's going to be in labor for, but they came and they stayed and waited for this baby to be born. They waited the whole time, and it was just, I was so happy to see them. I just felt so loved. It was really good to see them, and we took pictures before the baby was born. I was in the hospital bed and everyone was gathered around me, and it was just a really cool thing to see everyone and know that they were all waiting and so excited to see the baby. Well, at this point I was like completely numb. My right leg, like my right side, was a little more numb than my left, but I was numb. I couldn't really feel much. So the epidural like kicked in and it was working. Stephanie, my midwife, came in to check me again around like 5 a.m. And this time she suggested that we break my water since it hadn't broken on its own yet. And she said that it would help move things along a little faster. And she said that I was now dilated to a 5 and 100% effaced. So we went ahead and broke my water, and I didn't feel anything, I'm assuming because I was numb from the epidural, but I just kind of felt like a very warm sensation. It was nothing more than just a very warm feeling because my water had broken. After she did that, I progressed from a 5 to an 8 really quickly. So quickly that not much happened between the time that I was a 5 and an 8. It was just like very quick. And so at one point the nurses and the midwife checked me and realized that Hudson was face up. So your baby's supposed to be head down and the back of their head, I guess, to the ceiling. He was head down, but his face was to the ceiling. And they let me know that, like, if he stayed face up, that could make for, like, a longer delivery, that I would have to work a little bit harder to get him out, which didn't worry me at all. It was just kind of like, okay, well, whatever, we'll do what we have to do. And so, because he was face up, my nurse would come into my room every like 15 to 20 minutes and flip me to try and get Hudson to flip inside of me. So I was on my left side, on my right side, sitting straight up. I even got on my hands and my knees at one point in the bed to try and flip him, and he was just not moving. He just stayed put, and he was not going anywhere. He was staying right where he was. Then Stephanie actually had her shift end. A new midwife came in, which was totally fine. I had met her before at one of my appointments beforehand, and she's so sweet and so kind, and she was great. Her name is Catherine. When the shift changed, like when her shift ended and Catherine came in, she checked me and she told me that I was at a 9.5. And that was at about 9:30, 9:40 a.m. And the only thing holding me back from being at a 10 was that part of my cervical lip was swollen. And I was kind of confused how they like described why I wouldn't dilate to a 10, like that half of a centimeter. But I think it was just because he was face up and my cervix was having a hard time dilating the rest of the way because he was in the way or something like that. I don't really remember what they said. But that was what was holding me back from being a 10. So Catherine let my body try and dilate the rest on its own. But it just wasn't happening. So instead she suggested that I do a few practice pushes, and she was going to move the rest of my cervix out of the way as I was pushing to see if he would come down further, and then that would get rid of the rest of my cervix that needed to dilate. I started pushing, and she told me that I was doing great at pushing, and her and all the nurses were like, this is your first baby, like you're pushing so well and whatever, which was again so great to hear, and that made me feel really good. The practice pushes began at about 1:30 p.m. and then when the nurses saw how I was at pushing, they were no longer just practice pushes, but they were real pushes, because I guess them holding the rest of my cervix out of the way and me pushing as well as I was just working out. And even though I was gonna have to work a little harder to get him out, it was working, and so I was pushing now. Like, this was the beginning of delivery, I guess. The people who were in the room during my delivery was Adam, my mom, my nana, and my sister. And my sister originally wasn't going to be in the room, but she ended up taking photos for us. So those 4 people were in the room, and then of course like all the nurses and stuff. But I started out pushing laying on my back. I had my legs in the stirrups, and I had my hands around the back of my thighs, and you know, when you push, you push like you have to like do the biggest poop of your life. And so that's how I started out doing it, was on my back. After I was on my back, they had me flip to my side and do pushes that way, because it really was taking a lot of work to get him out because of that cervical lip and because he was face up. So started on my back, they flipped me to one side, they flipped me to the other side, and I was just kind of doing it with every contraction and so on and so forth. After the first hour of me pushing, I remember saying to Adam, like, this is fun, and everyone kind of looked at me like I was crazy, but like I seriously feel that way. I don't know what the heck is wrong with me, but like the experience was just so magical and so exciting, like knowing that I was doing something that was going to help me meet my baby. Like, it was fun. Like, it was exhausting, but it was so fun. So yeah, then the nurses asked me if I wanted to have a mirror in front of me to see what exactly my pushes were doing. So that if I pushed and nothing was really happening, then I would know I need to change up the way that I was pushing. And at first I denied the offer and said I wanted to like think about it. But eventually I did have the mirror and I was watching. And it was cool to watch in the mirror, but also kind of frustrating because they were telling me that they were great pushes and whatever, but I was watching my body in the mirror and it literally looked like nothing was happening and nothing was moving. I kind of began to get emotional just out of frustration. But I was quickly okay because with every contraction I felt more motivated to get the baby out. Like I was ready to just push him out and get him out of me and meet him. And I was exhausted and frustrated, and I just kind of felt that gave me like motivation and like amped me up, even though I was so tired. Hour 2 of pushing rolled around. So I had been pushing for 2 hours now. And I literally felt like deadbeat exhausted. I've never experienced exhaustion the way that I experienced it from pushing. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like almost like the life has been sucked out of you and you're just laying there like, oh my gosh, I have to keep pushing, which whatever, because I still loved the whole process, but it was so exhausting. I was like getting sleepy because I had been awake since 12:50 that morning and it was now 2:30. It was 3:30. In between contractions and pushing, they told me to just close my eyes and rest. And then once I started to feel my uterus tighten again, which by the way, because I had the epidural, when I felt a contraction coming, it wasn't painful. I just felt my uterus get hard. So once I started to feel that again, then I would open my eyes and like get to business. I tried closing my eyes and resting, but I was crying and I was sad that it was like taking so long because I had heard of so many people, you know, oh, I pushed my baby out in 20 minutes or whatever. And so I was getting emotional because I just felt like, what the heck, like this is taking so long. Which brings me to my next point, that you never, ever, ever should compare your story to someone else's because there's so many different circumstances and everything is just so different. You can't compare your stories. My midwife, Catherine, saw that I was frustrated. She saw that I was crying and she was so sweet, and she said that she was going to make me a labor cocktail, which was cranberry juice and like 7-Up or Sprite or something. And she brought it in and she's like, you need a little bit of sugar to, you know, wake yourself up, and it tastes really good, so I'm gonna make this for you. And so she brought it in and, oh, he's awake. Okay. He woke up and I'm feeding him. That's why it's zoomed up. So she brought me in that drink and it was delicious. That was really nice of her. And about 40 minutes after she brought me that little drink, the nurses began to like set up their station. They started to bring in the table of all the tools that they, you know, might need for delivery. They started to set up his little warmer bed thing that he was going to be put in after he was born. They started putting on their protective like covering and gloves and masks and whatever. And pediatricians came in and like everyone was just kind of getting ready. And that was, I don't know if I already said this, this was at about 4:10 p.m. So I had been pushing for close to 3 hours. And I mean, anyone that's had a baby could imagine like how tired I was. And so then at about 4:20 p.m., Adam began to become a little emotional because Hudson's head was crowning and we were about to meet our baby. And it wasn't just Adam that was emotional, it was everyone. It was me too, and my grandma, my mom, my sister. But I just wrote down that Adam became a little emotional because that moment, just connecting with your husband on that level, I had just dreamed of that moment. Like, you know, when you and your husband come to the realization that your baby is literally minutes away from meeting you. So I just had to jot that down in the journal. And so we shared like a really sweet moment together just before he was born, and he just told me how good I was doing. He told me the whole time that I was pushing, the whole time I was laboring, how good of a job I was doing, how strong I was, and kissing me and holding my head when I was pushing. And he was just amazing, both crying and kind of giggling because he was literally about to come out and the nurses weren't like ready completely. And they were like, don't laugh, you're gonna laugh your baby out, because he was literally that close to coming out. And so then 5 minutes later at 4:25 p.m., our baby boy was born, and he let out his first cry, and we were so excited to hear it. I remember the first thing that I said was, "You're so big," because everyone had predicted that I was going to have this tiny baby. Even my midwife, she said in between 6 and 7 pounds, and here he was coming out at almost 9 pounds. He was 8 pounds and 13 ounces, and he was so long. He was 22 1/4 inches, and like, we just couldn't believe that he was so big because, you know, I mean, a prediction is just that, it's a prediction, but we thought that he was going to be a lot smaller. The whole experience was just incredible. It was just incredible. I have no complaints. I have nothing that I would change. It was truly amazing and magical and spiritual, and I would do it a million times because it was fun to me. I like loved giving birth. I wasn't very scared leading up to it, anxious, but just because I was excited to meet him. And I didn't really have any fears about giving birth, just because I knew that I was gonna make it out alive, and people do this every day and they live to tell the story. And I just have such a great support team that I wasn't worried about it. I have a list of questions that people ask me on Instagram that I'm going to answer now. And if something comes to my mind about labor and delivery that I didn't mention, I will just throw it in that section. Well, the first question that I have is, did you get an epidural? Yes, I got an epidural. The next question is, how did labor start for you and were you scared? I kind of just said how my labor started, and no, I wasn't scared. I was very excited because it was like time, you know? I was 5 days overdue, and it was like I was ready to like get things going and moving and happening, and I was, even though the contractions were like painful, I was like very happy and excited that they were happening because that meant that it was time. The next question is, did you tear, and if so, tips for recovering? Yes and no. After he was born and he was on my chest, the midwife looked at me and she's like, so you didn't really tear at all. You basically just have like a little scratch that we're gonna put 1 stitch in. So yes, technically I did tear, but it was so nothing that it was 1 stitch, and like you might as well consider me not tearing. And I owe all of that to how long I was pushing for, because his head was pushing down on my cervix for so long, and with every push it was like, you know, stretching me more and more. And with every push also, you know, my nurses or midwife or whoever was helping had their fingers in there, like kind of like stretching it out and moving my cervix out of the way. So I owe my not tearing to the fact that I pushed for so long. A few days ago, maybe it was like a full week ago now, it started to burn when I would use the bathroom, like go pee. And so I messaged my midwife because I didn't really know what it was or what was happening, because I didn't really know where my stitch was even. And she said that where I tore could be being touched by my urine when I go to the bathroom. So she told me to use the Peri bottle, which is just like a squirt bottle, when I go to the bathroom, and spray it on myself when I pee to dilute my pee, because the salt in urine will make it sting. So that helped a ton, and now it doesn't burn. So I don't really have any tips for recovery on a tear because it wasn't very bad at all, and I just would consider that I didn't tear, you know? The next question is, was it easier or harder than you thought it was going to be? I really didn't have any expectations at all because, like I said, every birth story is different, and you shouldn't compare, or you shouldn't get hooked on an idea for your labor and delivery story. So I didn't really have any expectations at all. But I guess I would say that it was easier than I thought it would be, even though it wasn't an easy thing, because it was hard work and it was exhausting, but I guess easier in the sense that I was very calm throughout it all, and I felt very confident throughout it all. Next question is, did you have an epidural? I always wonder how necessary it is. Okay, so I guess like the The way that it's necessary, I guess, is all based off of your pain tolerance. I got the epidural when I was dilated to a 4, and my contractions were regular, the 5-1-1. They were 5 minutes apart, lasting 1 minute, and they had been going on for a full hour before I went into the hospital. So, I mean, they were intense. I personally just didn't want to feel pain, and I also had the thought, like, you know, if I do tear, I don't want to feel them stitching me up afterwards. I feel like it was necessary. The people who do it without an epidural, I don't know how. I know that our bodies are so capable and we can get through anything, but holy crap, like, I will never not have an epidural with my future babies because it was just so great. Next question is, were you induced? If so, with what medications? Congratulations, mama. No, I was not induced. The next one is, what was your favorite moment when in labor? I guess when I was in labor, my favorite moment was getting to the point where they told me that I was going to start pushing. That was really cool to finally be at that point. How prepared do you feel you were, and what surprised you the most? I felt that I was super prepared because I watched YouTube videos, like a million labor and delivery birth stories. I watched a whole bunch of postpartum videos. Like, I just wanted to prepare myself in any way. I read a book. I read a couple books actually. You know, I just wanted to be as prepared as possible, so I felt that I was very, very prepared, and honestly, nothing that happened surprised me. Was I terrified? And if so, what helped me combat fear? I wasn't terrified, but I think that I wasn't terrified because I prepared myself so much, and I am a religious person. I believe in Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ, and I know that they surrounded me throughout my whole pregnancy, and you know, they're always around me, and it was just really, I had a lot of faith in the fact that I was going to be okay, and that I was going to be taken care of, and that what was meant to be would be, and I just felt very confident. So I prayed a lot. Adam gave me a blessing when we were in the hospital, so it was all just very comforting and spiritual and great. Actually, there's a bunch of repeat questions, so I'm going to skip those. But someone else just said, no question, he's adorable, and congrats to you and your new little family. So thank you so much. That's all that I have for questions. That's my labor and delivery story. And now we have a beautiful baby boy that is with us, and we are smitten. He is perfect in every way. He's such a good baby. He like only cries when he wants food, basically. He's just amazing, and we love him, and we can't believe that he's ours forever. He's amazing.
You're gonna laugh your baby out. Shannon, don't laugh, he's coming out. Shannon, you said it. Yeah, come on. Yes! It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Okay. Right? You have dark eyebrows. That's your baby. Let me know when it's hard baby. I know. You're so big. We'll do it. Good job, Mama. We'll take off.